Tracking your food will help you get lean. It gives you structure, it exposes the lies, and it forces you to take responsibility. But it also burns people out. Every bite logged, every snack measured, every meal tracked like it's mission control. It works, until it doesn't feel worth the mental load anymore. So the question becomes, do you have to track forever to stay lean? Short answer, no. But if you're not going to track, your structure has to be rock solid, because the second you stop tracking, you hand control over to your habits. And if your habits are sloppy, so will be your results. You can't go from tracking everything to tracking nothing and expect the same outcome. You need a system that picks up where the app leaves off. That starts with predictability. Default meals, repeating foods that don't mess with your hunger signals. A clear plan for what you're eating before the cravings hit. You don't need more variety. You need more clarity. Because eating intuitively only works when your intuition hasn't been trained by stress, dopamine hits, and junk food patterns. If you're not going to use a food scale, then your environment has to carry the weight. That means fewer decisions, fewer triggers, and meals that fuel not tempt you. This isn't about obsession, it's about simplicity. And once you build the right structure, fat loss stops being a mental battle and starts becoming automatic. But let's take it further. Momentum isn't just about doing the right thing once. It's about stacking enough right moves that they start to run on autopilot. Because even with structure, the danger is falling back into old habits the second life gets chaotic. That's why routines alone aren't enough. You need boundaries. Clear, unbreakable rules you don't debate with yourself every day. Not because you're being strict, but because you're removing friction. Things like no second servings until 15 minutes later, or the kitchen closes after dinner. These aren't restrictions, they're safeguards, so you don't keep making decisions when you're tired, emotional, or triggered. You don't want to rely on willpower. You want to avoid needing it in the first place. And if you're someone trying to keep things like blood sugar and A1C in check, this matters even more. Not in a fear-based way, but because the more consistent your eating patterns are, the less your body has to fight to stay balanced. Wild blood sugar swings don't just impact energy. They fuel cravings, fat storage, and constant hunger confusion. You can't feel your way through food if every day looks different. Stability creates clarity. And once you have that, you stop reacting and start responding. So yes, intuitive eating is possible, but not as a starting point. As a byproduct, it comes after structure, repetition, and enough friction between you and your old patterns that your new ones actually stick. So if tracking is gone and structure is in, the next step is automation. Not just having a plan, but making that plan effortless to follow. You can't rely on daily decision-making. That's where most people slip. Not because they don't care, but because they're still negotiating with themselves every meal, and negotiation leads to compromise. Automation starts with removing variables. Same foods, same eating windows, same prep routine. The fewer choices you have to make, the more consistent your outcomes will be. Because real progress doesn't come from doing something magical once, it comes from doing the unexciting stuff over and over without friction. You also need backup plans. You won't always be home. You won't always have time to cook. So don't pretend every day will be ideal. Build fallback meals. Know where to grab a solid lunch on the go. Keep no prep snacks ready for when your schedule implodes. People don't fall off because they're lazy. They fall off because they only planned for perfect days. This is how you make fat loss sustainable without tracking. You create structure, then automate it, then reinforce it with contingency plans. And here's what happens. Your cravings weaken. Your energy stabilizes. You stop obsessing. And your results keep moving forward because you've removed the constant mental load. It's not effortless, but it becomes automatic. And once fat loss feels automatic, you win. Not because you're grinding harder, because you're thinking less, acting more, following the path you already laid out. No app needed, no scale, no food diary. Just a system that removes decision fatigue and keeps your actions aligned, even when life tries to pull you off course. But here's what most people overlook. Even when you've got structure, automation, and backup plans, there's still one thing that can quietly sabotage your progress. Reward-driven eating. Not emotional eating, not binge eating. Just this low-level pattern of eating for stimulation, not for need. You're not hungry. You're just chasing a feeling, a break, a reward, a way to make the day suck less. And it's subtle, a snack between tasks, a sweet hit after dinner. It doesn't feel like a big deal. But those moments are what rewire your brain to associate food with relief, not fuel. And if you keep feeding that loop, it doesn't matter how clean your meals are. You'll always be pulled off course by cravings that have nothing to do with hunger. The fix? Break the stimulus response loop. That means becoming aware of what you're really responding to. Boredom, stress, habit. Once you see it, you can change it. Add a friction point. Delay the reaction. Replace the behavior. Doesn't have to be dramatic, just different enough to interrupt the cycle. Because fat loss isn't just about eating less, it's about eating for the right reason. And when food goes back to being fuel, not entertainment, you regain control. That's how you finally escape the yo-yo. Not through more discipline, but through better awareness. Fewer reward-seeking habits, more intentional action. You don't have to fight cravings with willpower. You just have to stop training your brain to expect a dopamine hit every time you feel uncomfortable. This isn't about being robotic. It's about reclaiming your focus and giving your body what it actually needs, not what your habits have been taught to want. If this kind of no BS advice is helping you cut through the noise, hit like and subscribe. It helps me a lot and keeps this content coming. And drop a comment. I read them all and they shape what I cover next. Now, let's shift to something most people underestimate. How your day is structured around energy, not just food. You can have the perfect meal plan, but if your sleep is garbage, your stress is high, and your schedule is chaos, your body will keep pushing back. Not because it's broken, but because you're giving it too many mixed signals. Low energy from poor sleep? You'll crave quick fuel. High stress? Your appetite goes haywire. Erratic routines? Your hunger cues become unreliable. And this doesn't just affect fat loss. It messes with your recovery, your focus, and yes, even things like blood sugar stability over time. People love to optimize their food, but ignore the stuff that makes food choices easier to stick to. And this is where real progress gets made. Not in macros, but in managing the things that influence your decisions before food even enters the picture. Start with sleep. Quality rest tightens appetite regulation, improves insulin sensitivity, and makes cravings way easier to handle. Then build in rhythm. When your body knows what to expect, when you eat, when you train, when you unwind, it stops fighting you for balance. You don't need to overhaul your entire life, but you do need to recognize that your energy, mood, and decision-making are all connected. And if those things are off, no amount of meal planning is going to fix the chaos that's feeding your inconsistency. Dialing in your lifestyle isn't extra credit. It's the foundation. Get your day under control, and your eating follows. Ignore it, and your results stay stuck, no matter how clean your meals look on paper. But transformation doesn't just happen when you have structure. It happens when you can hold the line under pressure. It's easy to stick to your plan when life feels calm. The real test is what you do when things get unpredictable. When work blows up, when sleep falls apart, when your routine gets wrecked. Most people treat these moments like exceptions. I'll reset Monday, just a one-off, I'll make up for it later. But here's the truth. How you handle chaos determines how far you actually go. Anyone can follow a plan when it's easy. The ones who keep changing, they've built systems that can bend without breaking. That means having minimum standards, non-negotiables you stick to even when everything else is falling apart. Maybe it's a morning walk, a protein-first meal, or a hard stop on nighttime snacking. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to exist. Because when the chaos hits, and it always does, those small anchor points keep you grounded. They stop the spiral. They remind you that progress isn't about being flawless. It's about not disappearing the moment conditions aren't ideal. If your plan only works when everything is perfect, it's a bad plan. Build one that works especially on your worst days. That's what turns habits into identity. That's what makes results stick. You don't need motivation. You need something that holds firm when motivation disappears. Because that's where fat loss either survives or starts slipping through your fingers again. So here's what it all comes down to. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be prepared. Fat loss doesn't demand obsession. It demands structure, systems, simplicity. It's not about doing more. It's about doing fewer things more consistently. You're not stuck because you haven't found the right hack. You're stuck because you keep restarting from scratch instead of building something that can actually hold under pressure. The truth is, you don't need another plan. You need to stop negotiating with yourself. You need fewer decisions, fewer exceptions, fewer open doors for your old habits to sneak through. Because when your day is built around defaults, not effort, you don't have to fight so hard to stay on track. And no, this doesn't mean you'll never eat something off plan again. It means that when you do, it doesn't unravel everything, because your identity isn't tied to perfection. It's tied to consistency. That's the difference between people who maintain their progress and people who start over every few months. If you want freedom from food obsession, you need structure that sets you free. If you want real fat loss without burnout, you need habits that work when you don't feel like working. And if you want to stop thinking about food 24/7, then stop leaving everything to chance. Design your day, automate your meals, own your defaults, and stop chasing control. Build it. That's how you lose fat without losing your mind. For real this time.